Many schools in America have largely become secular wastelands. Virtually any idea under the sun seems to be allowed, but not anything having to do with God or the Christian faith. This is so ironic because historically it was for the purpose of studying the Bible that education for the masses even began in America, but not anymore.
Critics note that there has been a concerted effort to totally secularize the public schools. For example, John Dunphy, writing in the Humanist magazine, said some time ago, "The classroom must and will become an arena of conflict between the old and the new, the rotting corpse of Christianity, together with all its adjacent evils and misery, and the new faith of humanism, resplendent in its promise of a world in which the never-realized Christian ideal of love thy neighbor will be finally achieved."
Today, God has been excised out of public schools, out of safe spaces, out of so many different areas of government that we have bought into this notion of separation of church and state. That was never what the founders intended. If we look at the specific powers that are given to the federal government, we can see that education isn't even among them. And so when we look at something like a public school system, for the government to presume that we can compel our children to go and receive a secular education that specifically banishes God is precisely what the founding fathers would have specifically prohibited. Because effectively what our government is doing is establishing a national religion, but it's one of secular humanism and atheism.
If you take away religion, you take away morality. If you destroy religion, you destroy morality. If you destroy morality, you destroy society. And they had a profound link between faith and virtue and society.
I definitely think that God should be a part of everything that we do. Matter of fact, in my personal life and in the lives of those, some of the families that I know who homeschool, God's in our curriculum. There's an old saying that says, you are what you eat. And as we give our children the education that they deserve, we have to be very, very conscientious of what we are sharing with them via curriculum. So God is interwoven in all of our curriculum so that our children will have a consciousness, a sense of God. When I was going to school during the 60s, I can still see myself as this little girl standing up, saying a morning prayer. And our principal or the guidance counselor would come over the speaker and they would say, "Stand for the morning prayer." That kind of set the tone for the day.
America deeply needs a restoration. What Lincoln did was address the evils, slavery, in the light of what he called the better angels of the American character. And he constantly, take his speeches in Philadelphia and so on, he constantly appealed to the Declaration. And then he called for a new birth of freedom. Well, what we need today is a new birth of freedom. We need a leader who will address the present crisis in the light of the better angels of the American nature. So America is a nation by intention and by ideas. And unless you see a restoration of those ideas, it's finished.
Endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights in the United States of America, all created by a Creator who saw us as one family. America constantly needs to be refreshed, remembered, and revived. America certainly needs a great transformation, and we have had those transformations in America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
In all this, the settlers and founders of America knew that for the Republic to last, education based on a biblical framework was at the heart of their experiment.
So not only was ancient Israel dependent on a literate populace, the Puritans and the Pilgrims, within just a few years of them founding America, they founded Harvard.
Going forward, there will continue to be a conflict of visions for what schools teach. Many parents want school choice since they are the ones who are responsible for their children's well-being. Also, critics argue that today's political correctness has created what the late Catholic scholar Richard John Newhouse called the naked public square, meaning that God and faith have no place in public places in America, including in our schools.
There is simply no question that the naked public square in which we sometimes live today was not the vision of the founders and would inevitably and will inevitably lead to a breakdown, not just in virtue and morality, but in liberty and self-government.
Founding Father John Adams once said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." But today, because of a misreading of the First Amendment, in which secularists are trying to impose a separation of God and state, our schools have largely banished any knowledge about God. And yet the Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. What America needs so desperately today is what Lincoln called a new birth of freedom. For Providence Forum, I'm Jerry Newcombe.